What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Beyond Meat. I want to go over some of the data points, what's really moving it, and some key levels to really watch for. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So this is being filmed during the pre-market, so it is down 5.15%, largely just piggybacking off of the broader markets. Somewhat negativity now. So Powell, even though there was a 25 basis point cut, kind of was somewhat doom and gloomish for at least the foreseeable future. Subprime credit, and as well not really committing to a December cut just yet. If anything, he kind of referred to it as where we are now as neutral. So it wasn't the best, of course. So I think in general, the company itself as well hasn't really put out all that much in concrete news. They initially did try a little bit last week, but lately their last couple PRs and people's focus is this right here. So the whole convertible notes, and I think that causes a lot more fears rather than optimism. So I think just generally the company is struggling. I think they need money, and this is very telling that they do need money. And most likely, even if they kind of continue on the status quo, probably a tail end of Q1 they will be needing more money. That's just my estimate, of course, but nonetheless, though, I think the big thing and the big priority for retail investors right now is to save the Korean guy. And it's interesting. I saw this posted on Twitter. Someone, I guess, snipped it from Reddit. I guess he went all in at like 7 or 8 or something like that with his life savings, and he's kind of screwed, of course. So now retail wants to and are throwing tons and tons of money at Beyond Meat to save the Korean guy. And this isn't the first post I kind of saw about this. So very interesting. I don't know. Honestly, I think Beyond Meat needs to be really studied, but I think at the same time, a lot of influencers are getting in and really trying to pump Beyond Meat, but not really understanding anything about investing. And I think that's kind of the negative side of social media, is anyone can do anything and say anything with very little repercussion. Even, for instance, this. So I kind of highlighted this one right here. So someone's pretty confident, obviously a female there, so that's probably what's getting some attention, but you can clearly see that is on the ask side. So you need to really familiarize yourself with some of kind of the basic fundamentals of investing, but that goes to show someone really wants to sell. So this is the type of influencers out there, regrettably. So I think Beyond Meat was a very big momentum play, but you have volume kind of dropping quite dramatically over the last couple trading days. So for instance, yesterday you had 227, 478 the day before. So you're not seeing the billions anymore. So it looks like just people, it's fading. The popularity is fading. And for a momentum stock, that is not great whatsoever. Even during the pre-market, there's about 15 minutes before the market does open, shorts are increasing 1.05 million shares. So they are going to be fairly active. Even generally, they have been really doubling down from the recent lows of around 13%. And so that's when Ortex and a lot of other platforms updated the correct outstanding share count. And so yeah, it went from roughly about 13 to where we are now, so 22.59%. So shorts, like I said, are going to be fairly active, and typically what their MO is that they like to hit hard first and near power hour. You can kind of see that right here. So they're a little bit more active. This is kind of what happened yesterday on a side note. Going into today as well, there's roughly around 8 million shares available to be shorted. So in reality, it's not really looking all too great. Of course, any momentum stock can really switch it up very fast. It doesn't take too much. And I think a lot of people have very high expectations now for their upcoming earnings, which is slated for the 4th after hours. But in my opinion, I think just based on what we can see for PRs, I haven't really followed this stock too much, aside from like 2021 or 2022. But I think generally their stock is really struggling. So unless they give absolutely stellar future guidance, this stock, most likely that might be the kind of popping bubble. So I think if anyone is wanting to get in to save the Korean guy, you kind of need to do it fast. I don't know if it'll get to kind of the levels that he needs to kind of get out safely and making a profit. But yeah, even this individual who threw 100,000 at 188, they might be feeling the pinch a little bit, but then again, some key levels to really watch for right now with that 177 is trading between this S1 and this S2. So 172 is going to be a strong support, kind of bounce off of that during the pre-market a little bit. So just watch for that. And then 151. Flip side, 185 followed by 205 is going to be the next round target / resistance point. So I think a lot of people will be really day trading this. When it comes down to the options from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for people for it to recover to like that 2 to 250. Bears are anticipating for it to break 150. So you kind of have that a little bit more upside, mind you, but still kind of does show that there's going to be most likely a lot of volatility anticipated in the foreseeable future. These are some of the big transactions from yesterday on the secondary market. So the big ones were 1.8 and then 1.4 million. Aside from that though, these are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So this was rather quiet. So shorts and hedge funds didn't really do too much yesterday. One thing as well to take note of though, this is why I've brought up in the past where volume comes from, because if you look at the secondary market, these two transactions surprisingly were buys. And if we kind of look overall, most of the transactions coming from institutions were buys. So big money is quietly buying Beyond Meat. I don't know if it's for the purposes of just lending out stock, because that is a very popular thing that people tend to do. And institutions, they buy a stock just for the purposes of lending out, and that way they can make some money that way. But essentially you are having algorithmic trading really suppressing Beyond Meat, and that's been kind of the case for the last 3 or 4 trading days. So that's why also Beyond Meat has had a certain level of suppression, regardless of the volume. But on the actual chart, as of right now, it is below that 10-day moving average. So not necessarily the best for a momentum play. Looking at the market position, you see, especially comparing from yesterday, you see a little bit more willing sellers. But as I've mentioned, even when it was at that $4 range, this gap could potentially be filled. So that's roughly around that 153. Of course, 151 was that key support from the fib levels. So in theory, it could really drop to that point before you might see a V-shape type of recovery. But I think in reality, the company definitely does need to put out something. That's any momentum play. Like for a momentum play, you need to get people's attention and retain it. So you need to kind of have shiny things and be like, hey, look at this, whether that's through PR or influencers. So I think a lot of influencers were hyping up Beyond Meat right now. Now you're left with kind of the individuals that I just showed you that aren't possibly the most logical, if that kind of makes sense. So in reality, you need a lot of good influencers really pumping it. And then you also need some good PR in order for that V-shaped recovery. But in my opinion, given the circumstances in the market, you might see a test of that 152. Of course, I'm not here to get you to buy, nor am I here to sell. I'm just reading the data, interpreting exactly where I see things going. No different than when it was at 65 cents, I signaled that it was a buy. Initially, I put $4 as a target. I amended that on the 21st to $6. Of course, I didn't reach the high, but still, this is why it's very important just to read the data. So let me know your thoughts on Beyond Meat. Are you losing hope? Are you buying more? Are you here to save the Korean guy? What's your kind of 2 cents on all of that? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, such as even Beyond Meat, where I put out all these signals right here. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.